Today, Kimbra and I had decided that we're going to talk about our celebrity encounters, I guess we'll call it. You know, living in Los Angeles and the Hollywood area, you run into celebrities everywhere, whether it's at the grocery store or at a play.
Car wash.
You may work with them or at a car wash. Yeah, anywhere and everywhere. So, you know, people that live outside of LA sometimes find it fascinating, sometimes not. But we just thought it's kind of interesting and fun. And we thought we'd share some of our stories of interacting and meeting celebrities in LA. And
Yeah, maybe some of the more unusual ones that people might get a kick out of, right?
Yeah. So what do you have to say? Who's someone interesting that you've
Well,
run into?
I've met a lot of people, as you know, you have, and there's some more, elaborate stories that we can get into at another time. But I was thinking about when I lived in Orange County. We talked about this on my other video, where I would drive up to rehearse with this band, this original band that I was in. And one of my friends was working as a limo driver for a lot of celebrities, and he was going. And I was really young. God, I wasn't even. I was still a teenager, and he was working for sort of for Aerosmith a little bit. So he said, "Oh, I'm going to go pick up Steven Tyler for a video shoot. Do you want to come along?" Right? I was like, "Heck yeah," because I'm a big fan of Aerosmith. And so I said, but isn't he going to think it's weird, that I'm in the limo waiting, And he said, no, he's really cool, So I was like, okay. So we picked up him and his manager, and I was just so young. It was the first like rock star that I ever met. So, and he was like, hey, Kimbra, how you doing? With his like gruffly, growly voice that he has, right? And they were sort of making a comeback. We were going on to the video shoot of a video called Angel. They had been away for a bit, and they were sort of making a comeback. So that actually turned out to be a really fun time, because I ended up staying on the video shoot, and the director said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this extra little scene with this girl, that he would sing to, but you don't get seen. You're sort of under the covers. And I was like, oh, I'll do it, And so we were getting ready to do it. And then at the last minute, they're like, oh, we decided we're going to keep the original story. And I was like, oh man, my big shot at the Aerosmith video, But it turned out to be fun. And then years later, I actually met them again with my boyfriend, who was good friends with Joe Perry and their manager. And we went to go see them in concert, and we went backstage, and all their families were there and stuff. And they're like super fun to hang out with. Really nice guys.
Oh,
actually,
I bet.
They were a little cleaned up by that point, So I have a picture. Maybe I'll share it with everybody later.
Yeah, maybe we can put the picture in the video.
Yeah. So what about you? Tell me some fun stories.
Well, that reminds me of I didn't meet him, but one time we were at the Viper Room, and for people that are outside of Hollywood, the Viper Room is world famous. That's where River Phoenix died, in front of the Viper Room. And it's a famous venue for bands.
Sure.
And the main room is very small. I don't know, probably holds 100, 130 people. Maybe. So it's real intimate, and rock stars, I used to go there on Monday nights with my friends, and rock stars would show up, and they'd do jams, and all kinds of rock stars would show up all the time. I can't remember all of them, but like Duff from Guns N' Roses, and Matt Sorum, and I think maybe Billy Idol was there one night. Anyway, Steven Tyler showed up one night. And
if you like our videos, go ahead and click on like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
And
this is like the Steven Tyler tribute video.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's such a small area that you can be very close to the stage. We were the second booth from the stage, so we were all like sitting up on the back of the booth, and he's like 20 feet away singing. You could see the sweat on his face, and anyway, that reminded me of that night. That's a night I will never forget, because I was with two of my very good friends, George and Greg. It was a very fun venue. I have many memories of going to the Viper Room on Monday night. So anyway, it was really fun. And then when he showed up that night, that was just
made your day.
Well, you get used to these celebrities showing up. I remember when I bartended at the Troubadour one night, Stevie Nicks showed up and got up and sang. It's like,
really? That is cool.
Oh yeah, that was one of my really big memories of,
that is awesome.
Awesome. Her just showing up and wanting to, I guess they try out new music. It's like kind of like
that's true.
A comedy club. The big comedians come in sometimes and perform. So yeah, anyway, lots of fun memories, but the Steven Tyler night, that was super cool, super cool.
That
So
happened to me when I went to New York one year on a trip, and we were at Catch a Rising Star. I don't even know if that's still open, but Robin Williams showed up and did he was a big star at that point, and he did like
yeah,
an hour improv for everybody. We didn't even know he was there.
yeah.
And then we were like, oh my God, Robin Williams. And then afterwards, he hung out at the bar and just talked to everybody, bought everybody drinks. He was like the nicest guy.
Aw.
You know?
Yeah, so I made a list of the ones I can remember of my kind of celebrity encounters. Um, so I'm going to try to, it's all scribbled on like this little paper,
A
little
little
post,
post-it.
but so I'll try to go in some kind of order. So, okay, so I had been dating this guy, and I've mentioned him before. He was on a soap opera. He was one of the main characters on a soap opera. And I had been dating him off and on for a couple of years and dating other guys. We were dating other people. It was nothing serious. It was just like get together, hang out, go for dinner and stuff. So anyway, I was invited to this party, Sylvester Stallone's birthday party. So I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool. And I'm being introduced to Sylvester Stallone, and he is being a good host and taking me over to this table where the cake is. And he's like, let me come over and get you a piece of cake, which is, you're thinking, wow, Sylvester Stallone is, getting me cake. This is really big. But on the other side of the table is sitting this guy that I'd been dating on the soap opera, Todd, and he's got a girl on his lap. And that's all I can think of at that moment. I'm like,
Aww.
what?
I was going out with other people, but you can't.
Yes, yeah. That was the funny thing, because I told him later he didn't see me because I was just like kind of fuming, like how dare he date someone else? He's not allowed. Which was funny because then when we talked later, I go, yeah, I saw you at Sylvester Stallone's birthday party with that girl on your lap. And he's like, well, Kellie, so you date other people too. And I'm like, okay. But anyway, that was just kind of ruined my Sylvester Stallone moment.
Yeah, that's rare that you get served cake by Sylvester Stallone.
I thought it was really nice of him and polite of him to, because, well, it was an intimate setting. It's not like there were 1,000 people there. It was his birthday party, but that was I thought very nice of him to offer me some cake.
Too. That's right.
Yeah. And there was another story similar to that. I was invited to a party. I went to a party with a friend at John Stamos's house.
John Stamos is such a nice guy. He is so nice.
So nice, and of course very cute.
Mm-hmm.
But and the Beach Boys were playing there. He was doing a jam with them. And so anyway, when I was introduced to him, he asked what he could get me to drink. And I said I would like white Zinfandel. So he goes and looks for white Zinfandel in his wine repertoire, whatever he has, his selection of wine.
Right.
And he comes back and he's like, well, I don't think I have any white Zinfandel. And I said, well, it's pink. And then he was like, it's pink, but I was looking for a white wine. And I said, well, no, it's pink. So anyway, I said, do you have any pink wines, like a rosé or a blush? So anyway, it was just really cute because he's trying to find me this white Zinfandel and he didn't know really what it was. And it's just a cheap wine.
He is I've had occasions where I've run into him at different things, backstage at a concert actually one time, and we were both waiting for those, what are those things called, those potty things that everybody goes into, the porta potty. Yeah, and they were backstage at this concert.
No,
I know, and I was like, oh, I hate using those, but he had been waiting there, and I walked up and he was like, and then the door opened. He goes, oh no, after you. And I was like, oh, thank you. You're so chivalrous.
John Stamos at a porta potty.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. It was like, oh gosh. But it was like I think it was one of those outdoor concerts. So even the backstage was kind of like makeshift, Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But another funny rock story, not that we're just into rockers, but we're going to tell you our rock stories first. But so the same boyfriend that took me to the Aerosmith concert, we were out at a club in LA one night seeing some music, and then all of a sudden I see these two really tall guys walking with lots of hair, right? And it was Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. And when I was a kid, I was a huge Kiss fan, especially Paul Stanley. So, and I'd never met them. So Mark, my ex, he knows them, and Gene actually produced some albums of Mark's and stuff. But anyway, so they come in and he was like, I'm like, oh my God, it's Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons. And then they come over and they hung out with us for like a really long time. And then and then it was funny that day I had actually seen Paul Stanley at my gym. I used to work out at Gold's Gym in Hollywood, and I saw him as I was leaving, so I didn't, say anything to him or anything like that. So Mark was saying, "Oh, she saw you at the gym today," and he was
Oh,
like, "Oh wow, how long have you been going there?" So we were talking about Gold's Gym for the longest time, and I said
oh,
how I took yoga there, and he goes, "Yoga, that's just reminds me of all these being in all these different positions," and and I said, "Well, it pretty much is," but we were talking about yoga, and then Gene Simmons is really like business minded, and he was going into this whole thing with Mark about some business plan, and he's known for that. He's known for being like a really good businessman, and he will take the time to explain things to you about stuff.
wow.
But that just made my night that we were hanging out with Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah. Yeah.
And how nice they were.
Well, and that reminds me of another rocker story because so I was hanging out at a bar that I was a bartender at one night in Hollywood. And it was a quiet night. There weren't a lot of people there. And the owner introduces me to Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses and Matt Sorum. Matt's the drummer and Duff's the bass player. And so Duff and I started talking a lot, and we really hit it off. And he didn't want to leave, but Matt wanted to leave. So Duff asked me if I'd drive him home. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll drive you home. The funny thing about that is he was such a mess. He was drunk and he was just a disheveled mess. But he was so sweet. So, I'm like, all right. And he's in Guns N' Roses. I mean, who's not going to be fascinated by wanting to know the people in Guns N' Roses? And they were currently working on their Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 albums. So they were at their peak. So I was really interested in talking to him. And I drove him home and he asked for my number. So of course I gave him my number and he started calling me. Well, when I went to the John Stamos party, he was there with a girl.
Okay.
And he saw me, and then he started, that's when he really started pursuing me more. Started calling me, and it was no big romance. I mean, the sad thing is, and I'm sure he may not even remember because he was always drunk. Like anytime I was with him, well, I think he was just drunk 24/7 during that time period. And I know he's cleaned himself up and he's doing, fabulous things with his life. So I don't mean to criticize him, but he was pretty much a mess at the time, but I did have a lot of fun with him. We went to all kinds of parties, and it gave me a taste of, though, being that close to celebrity. It's kind of isolating and sad because people were just always so at him and after him. But it's also so funny what a small world Hollywood is, because I had already met Duff and he had been calling me, and then I go to this party at John Stamos' house and there's Duff, and then he starts pursuing me, and it's just so funny what a small community and world that Hollywood is. So.
It's true. I used to go dancing at this place called Bar One. It was in West Hollywood. I don't know if you remember that place.
Yeah, I used to.
And one night, what'd you say?
I used to hang out there.
Yeah, I didn't know you then, but so anyway, I was there one night with some friends, and I was standing getting a drink, I believe, and I turned to my right, and I see this guy. I recognize him. He's an actor, and it was Chris Penn. He had just done Mulholland Falls, or was it Mulholland?
Mulholland Drive. There was a movie
called
Mulholland Drive.
I think it was Mulholland Drive.
Okay.
Anyway, but I knew his brother, of course. I was more of a fan of Sean Penn. I knew he was at work, but I'd recognized Chris because he'd been in that movie. And so anyway, I'm just standing there waiting for my drink, and he starts talking to me, and he says, what are you doing here? I'm just hanging out, blah, blah, blah. And I was with some friends. And then we started talking for a long, long time, and he's really, really nice. And he said, do you want to go next door to On the Rocks with us? He had a friend with him. So I was like, sure, why not? So I gathered my friends, and we all, because you could practically walk there to the Roxy, I don't remember if we drove or we walked, but it was really close.
It was a little bit of a drive.
A little bit.
Walk, but
we probably drove.
Sunset,
Yeah. But I remember thinking I always wanted to go to On the Rocks, and I'd never been there because I always heard about it. And it was like, it's only open special times of the like certain nights and stuff. So, but Chris knew the secret code or whatever it was that you got to say to get in. And so we had so much fun. And I was reading recently that it's been resurrected, like the sons of Lou Adler are trying to get it going again, because I think it was closed for some time, But Chris Penn, we ended up going out another night. He's since passed away, which is really sad, but we he knew everybody, and it was a good time.
Yeah. Well, he's a talented actor too.
Oh That's true.
Very
You're right.
talented.
You're
Yeah.
right.
And,
I knew Sean work more, but you're right. Chris Penn is a very talented actor, and since then, I've seen a lot of the movies that he's been in. He actually was in Reservoir Dogs, so which we talked about before. So anyway.
Yeah, that's neat that you got to hang out and go out with him. I mean, and yeah, it's
Yeah,
fun to go in Hollywood with celebrities because the doors open everywhere. It's just like,
that's
come on
true.
in. Doesn't
That's
matter,
true.
yeah, yeah.
Be-
So
because certain things growing up, you always used to hear. I used to read a lot of magazine articles about famous places, and I remember reading about Lou Adler and the Roxy and On the Rocks, and supposedly Mick Jagger used to hang out there, and all anybody who was
oh, I didn't know
famous.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So when I got invited, I was like, sure, we're going. you know.
yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway,
Fun. Yeah. I don't remember. I remember going to On the Rocks, but I don't remember who I went with. I know it was pretty exclusive and upstairs. You had to go up the
yeah.
stairs and
Like I
hard to.
said, it's not open all the time, I guess, or at that time it wasn't open all the time. It was only open during certain maybe night hours or something.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, and another funny story I was going to tell you was Adam Sandler used to have these big holiday parties every year. I think he stopped doing them a couple years ago because he's been touring and doing movies more. But by the way, I saw the plug for Adam Sandler. I saw him in this movie called Uncut Gems on Netflix. He is amazing. It's so intense. It's a really dark film, but he was really really good, and I thought he should have been nominated for Academy Award
So
because
it's
he
not
was.
comedy? Not
No,
comedy?
no, no. It's
Oh,
really really dark. It's about the jewelry business in I think it's downtown LA. I think it's downtown LA. Yeah. Or was it New York? Gosh, I forgot. But anyway, he was really, really good, and you've never seen him. He's so committed. He definitely should have been nominated for an award because you won't recognize him. But anyway, he used to do these holiday parties in the Valley, and he would rent out this big entertainment center in Burbank, and I was lucky enough to get invited for a few years, about 3 years in a row. So one year I went with a friend, a date that I brought, and my hair is in my mouth. Sorry about that. A friend of mine I brought as a date, and we were eating the food. And the great thing about Adam Sandler's parties were he would have these concerts in this other room where he would play, and he'd get all these really amazing musicians to come, and he'd have great session players too the whole time on stage, like Waddy Wachtel, who used to play for Linda Ronstadt. But he would get famous people to come and drop in and do little 1 or 2, 3 songs. So that was always the highlight of the night, was to see them perform. But I was eating some food with my friend that I brought to the party, and he was like, "Oh, there's Jay Leno. I know Jay because we have a mutual friend." So we called him over, and I thought, oh, he's just going to say hi and just nice to see you, and probably everybody wants to talk to him, right? Yeah, and he stayed with us for like 45 minutes, an hour, and I was like laughing. I kept thinking, he probably really wants to go, Nellie. I know he wants to go, but he just kept talking to us, so he obviously enjoyed our company, right?
yeah. Well, they're just people too. I mean,
Sure,
really,
sure.
I like the time I spent with Duff. He really opened up to me a lot about. I remember his mother had Parkinson's disease, and he read a card to me that she had sent him, and he was looking for a friend, someone to talk to, who was normal, who didn't want anything from him, and there he I remember, his bedroom was like it was a suite. Yeah, the bed was elevated on this platform, and then
Mm-hmm.
there was a settee in front of the little love seat in front of a fireplace. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember he sat me down on the little love seat, and he sang a song to me from the new album before anybody had heard it, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember what it was, but he was very it was just like he was very romantic. I remember another night he sang Patience to me.
Mm-hmm.
um
Aw,
yeah, I mean, he was just they're just people, and I think understanding that they
that's
they
true.
they are put in a position. If anything, I always empathized with famous people, and I always felt like um I don't know, I remember a friend of mine, Eric Eisner, I took you to one of his parties or something. I can't
Did
remember,
I?
but
I don't
it
remember,
was
but
Michael Eisner's son. And I remember Eric saying to me one night, he's like, "You don't care who anyone is, do you?" And I'm like,
you'll
"No."
tell him to F off. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, I think that's what he was kind of insinuating, that I was like not gonna give anybody a pass.
Right.
And I was like, no. I go, why would I? It doesn't have anything to do with me. I mean, good for them, but I just really didn't feel that way. So I always felt like, if anything, I felt a little bit sorry for famous people because everybody's at them, wanting them all the time. But
Yeah, I guess I get more, I don't know, not intimidated. If I really admire their work, I kind of put them up a little bit here, even though you're right, they're just regular people like anybody else, right?
yeah.
But I just felt like Jay Leno probably got so many people talking to him all the time that just to be polite, he'd go, hey, how you doing? Having a good time? But he genuinely sat with us and had a real conversation for like an hour,
Well, that's
So,
one of the reasons I never asked for autographs. To me, that's, I don't know, just stupid. It's a name on a piece of paper.
right. I agree.
And I never asked to get pictures taken with them. Actually, I didn't know it existed, but I was years ago given a picture of me and Duff, and I'm like, I don't even remember this picture being taken. So yeah, I just always wanted to give them their space. So I always, if somebody's famous, I would never approach them if they approach me or I'm introduced or something. Which that is reminds me of a funny story with a famous person. So I was at a play reading one night. I think Westwood, I forget where it was. Westwood, I think, is where they used to do these playroom. Dan Lauria put them on, or do you remember those, or did you ever hear those? Anyway, it would always be
I know the name.
famous people would be doing play readings, and you had to be invited. So anyway, I'm at this play reading one night, and I meet Jay Acavone, who was an actor. I can't remember what he was on, but he was a client of the company that I worked for. I worked at William Morris Agency, and he was one of our clients, and I knew Jay from being a client. And so he was with this guy named Matt, and he introduced me, and I was like, "You look so familiar." I kept saying, "Have you ever been to blah, blah, blah?" I was naming all these bars where I had been a bartender at, because I knew everybody, because I worked at all the celebrity nightclubs. So I always waited on celebrities. So I was like, "You look so familiar. You just look so," and I kept naming these different bars. I'm like, "Have you ever been to blah, blah, blah? Do I look familiar to you? Do you remember me from anywhere?" And he kept saying, "No, no, no." And finally later, somebody said, "Yeah, he's in that new show. It's called Friends." It was Matt.
Oh,
And that's probably where I had seen him, but it was fairly new. It wasn't like, I think it was the first season. And I had seen him somewhere, but I was so used to seeing people that looked familiar in the club. So anyway, it was
that would be humbling for him, Who are you again?
I know. Well, he was, it was new too.
Yeah, he was new. That's true.
But it was a funny story.
One of the nicest celebrities I've ever met, I think I was telling you about this earlier. I used to have this condo in Sherman Oaks, and one of my good friends was Kendra Munger. She was taking acting class from Lindsay Wagner, and I know we talked about this earlier, and I never watched The Bionic Woman. I know, but she has a lot of fans. And anyway, Kendra said, "We'd like to shoot a scene at at the condo at the time in Sherman Oaks." And I was like, "Yeah, no problem, So she came over, and she is the nicest, most down to earth, like really cool person. And she's really beautiful, and she doesn't wear like hardly any makeup or anything. And so I was just really impressed with that. I was like, "Man, she looks really good with no makeup. I hate her,"
I watched that show when I was
know you told me.
I loved that show. I loved her, and she
Bionic Woman.
Well, I would imagine she didn't get caught up in the Hollywood scene because you didn't hear a lot of gossip or anything. Only good things and nice things about her, and she just seemed so classy.
Yeah, that's a good word for her.
I mean,
a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good word for her. She seems very real, very classy, and not phony, which is the opposite of real, right?
Very good.
Yeah, I'm reiterating it.
In multiple ways for those who understand.
In any language.
Yeah, but, no, that would be a treat to meet her.
I got invited through Kendra to another like little party she was doing. I forgot what it was for, but she's a really neat lady, and she was real good to her family. And I remember she had these really adorable sons that were just really neat kids. They're not kids anymore, but they were a lot younger at the time.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah, so
And so
that's my
she's
Lindsay.
teaching acting now. She teaches.
Well, I don't know if she's doing it now, but she was doing it
Was.
periodically. Like she would like Lindsay Wagner course, like I think it was like what 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and then she wasn't doing it on a regular basis. I don't think, but I know Kendra really liked the class a lot. So I just thought it was such a thrill. You know, Lindsay Wagner's using
Yeah.
my place as a location shot.
Yeah. Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be really neat to have met someone like her.
yeah,
Yeah.
she was very cool.
Let me look at my list. Oh, so here's another little story. It's kind of I don't even know how I met this guy. I have no idea. I don't have a recollection, but the Van Patten family, you
Oh
remember
yeah, sure.
Van Patten from, I
Hmm.
think Eight is
Eight is
Enough.
enough. Hmm.
Vince Van Patten, I think he was a tennis player. And
Hmm. Hmm.
so there's a Nels Van Patten, and he was an actor. So somewhere along the way, I met him and he asked me out on a date. So he called and made the plan. We were going to go out after his class. He was having an acting class that night. And so anyway, he picks me up and we get in the car. He's drunk. He's been drinking. And I'm like,
Right.
I thought you were at acting class. So we drive to Malibu, but he's not real drunk, but he's like tipsy. So we
Right.
drive out to Malibu and we have, there's, at a restaurant and there's probably 8 to 10 people at this table. And Emilio Estevez is there. And I think Vince Van Patten was also there and his girlfriend, or they were all with girls. It was all couples.
Right.
Anyway, and then so Nels continued to drink. So it was a little scary driving home. The drive home was scary. And I didn't answer any more of his calls after that because I was like, I could have gotten killed that night. I was so scared driving home. It was really frightening. But I hope, it was just a period, a phase that he was going through, because I've never heard any scandals or anything about him. They were a very nice family. And then Vince Van Patten, I got seated at a friend's wedding at a table with him and his wife, Betsy, which I guess Betsy's wedding was about her
Oh,
their
okay.
marriage or whatever. So anyway, so I sat with him at the wedding. So that's my experience with
Yeah,
the Pattons.
I've heard good things about them because I actually have other friends that know them too. Like one of my good friends, Julie, who I toured with in the USO, I believe her husband was friends with one of Van Pattens. They were doing something together. So she'd always tell me what nice people they were,
Yeah,
So
they were really good looking guys, and it was a pretty wholesome family. But that experience, I don't know what it was that night, but that he was drinking, I was like, nah, he just drank too much for me that night.
yeah, that could be a little scary, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and you must have run into so many celebrities when you were bartending, like you were
Mhm.
saying that Stevie Nicks got up and sang, but there's
Mhm.
probably other stories that you have too from that time, right?
Well, I have a ton of stories of waiting on celebrities. I mean,
That's true.
it was more of an experience where you're waiting on them. But well, here's a funny one. So the guy that I dated on the soap opera in the 80s, how I met him is I was working as a bartender at this celebrity nightclub. It was full of celebrities. And he said he was always intimidated and scared to come up and get waited on me, but he thought it was cute. So he didn't go to the other
Yeah.
bartender. He waited in line to come to me.
Yeah, because for people that don't know Kelly, when she was a bartender, she was serious. I mean,
I
you
was
just,
all business. I'm like, you get in line, you have your money ready, you better move it, know what you want. And I mean it.
yeah, so
So
she kept it going.
I
Boom,
was
boom,
running
boom,
the
boom.
show and I was really moving fast. And I'd be like, have your money ready. Come on, form a line here.
That's so
So he was
funny.
a little nervous because he was like, I
Right.
made sure I knew what I wanted and I had my money in my hand. He's like, he even said this. He goes, I made sure all my dollar bills were flat so you wouldn't get mad. It was so funny. So anyway, so I met, that's how I met him, I guess, from bartending. So, through the years, I worked in a lot of well, like why we're talking about this anyway is Hollywood. You meet celebrities everywhere. It
Sure.
doesn't matter what kind of place you work, or I don't care if you're working at the grocery store, they come and buy food.
Yeah, of course.
As a bartender, and I worked in a lot of celebrity, I guess we'll call them celebrity nightclubs. You had to be a celebrity to get in or know a celebrity. They were private. You had to be on
Hmm.
the list. And so I waited on a lot of most of them were, I would say 99.9% of them were super, super nice. But my all-star favorite customer was Will.I.am from Black Peas. He was a regular.
Aw.
I waited on him every week. He was a great tipper. He was polite. He was so sweet. And I remember one night he asked me for my phone number because he said, and we would have small talk and talk all the time. And he knew that I lived in Sherman Oaks, and he said his mother lived in Sherman Oaks and he always visited her. And so, he knew that I lived in Sherman Oaks. So he was going to cook Thanksgiving dinner at his mother's house. And he said, give me your number and I'll call you and I'll bring a plate of food for you. And I'm like,
Aw,
okay.
sweet.
And I totally forgot about it. I wasn't really waiting around to see if he brings me food. So I went somewhere else that day and I got home, and it was back in the day of, was it answering machines or was it on my cell phone? I can't remember. But anyway, I had a message from him. It said, this is Will. I got some, and I remember it because he said, I have jambalaya for you. And I didn't know what that was. So the next time I saw him, I said, Will, what is that? What's jambalaya? And he said it was like a seafood mix.
Yeah, is that from Louisiana? It might be jumbo.
Yeah, he said it's like kind of Cajun food or something. So
our friend
liked it.
Our friend Lola, her mom made it for us one time because she was from Louisiana, and she said, my mom's here and she's making jambalaya. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like something I would like, but isn't that sweet of him? He was just like that. He was just a really genuine, nice guy. And then the guy with the long braids, the long hair, I never waited on him because he always went to the other bartender. So Will always came to me, and the guy with the long braids went to the other bartender.
Are you talking about Anthony Kiedis or Kiedis?
No, he was in Black Eyed Peas.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Red Hot Chili Peppers.
No,
sorry.
Both of them are awful. But, here's another funny story with Will. So he was always dressed real flashy, if anybody that knows Will.I.am or sees him, he always dresses, to the nines. And I remember one night I was like, what do you do? Because I didn't know who he was. He just Will, and I'd always have his credit card, and on the credit card it says William. And I don't remember the last name, but one night I remember thinking, God, he's, so dresses really flashy and everything. And I clueless as I am, because I've met many, like Duff, the night I met him, I would never have known he was in Guns N' Roses. I don't know. I listen to the records. Or the music. I don't pay attention to who's who. So anyway, I didn't know. And he goes, I'm in a band called Black Eyed Peas. And I was like, I swear to you. I said this, good luck. And because
let me know if you guys make it.
I worked in so many rock clubs, and I knew so many struggling musicians that were trying to make it, which brings me to another night. So I met this guy one night, and we were flirting. Like, he asked me out, and I'm like, I gave him my number, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's cute. His name was Steven. And I'm like, oh yeah. And I asked him, you always ask, what do you do? And I said, what do you do? And he's like, I'm in a band. I'm like, what's the name of the band? Rat. And I'm like, I go, have you ever played at the Troubadour? Because I had bartended at the Troubadour, and that's where he was rocker. I could tell that's where a lot of rockers had played their music. And he's like, no, we've never played at the Troubadour. We usually played pretty big stadiums. And I was like, oh, okay. And I never thought twice about it. And I just didn't know. I had heard their music. I heard the songs. I knew their songs, but I didn't know the name of the band. Right. And we dated for about a month before we were in, he took me into Tower Records, and he's like, see, these are my records, my albums.
I'm legit.
Okay, that's really nice. Good for you. But I didn't, it didn't matter to me one way or the other. And he wasn't in that scene anymore. He had whatever. They weren't famous. They're still famous, but not in the scene.
Right.
anymore.
They weren't the hot band of the time.
Which, his heyday had been past, and I was really glad of that, because I didn't want to deal with that. But he was so sweet and so charming, the most sweet, charming guy. So anyway, that was another little story of a rock star that I.
And did you ever wait on or serve Keanu Reeves, or did you just say he was in your club? I can't remember.
No, I managed a bar in Hollywood that he used to come into. Hollywood Billiards, which is he used to come, and Joe Rogan used to come there. And I never, talked to either one of them, but the staff really loved both of them and thought they were super, super nice people. And of course, from their reputations, that's true. Because
Keanu Reeves, it just seems like, the real deal all the way around, and just like such a nice person, talk about not affected by celebrity.
Non-Hollywood.
Yeah.
Well, I worked with two people in his band. So he had a band called Dog Star.
Yes, I actually knew one of the musicians as well.
Okay. Well, I worked with Robert Mailhouse at the Playboy Club in New York, and I don't know if he was the drummer. He might have been the drummer, and then Greg Miller was the guitar player. So I worked with him at a bar in California and at Los Angeles.
My friend actually was in the sort of, I think, the second incarnation, or he was replacing somebody. He was the keyboard player, but I don't know if he was in the original Dog Star.
Yeah. Yeah. This is when they first started, and both of those guys are super nice guys, and I'm sure that Keanu Reeves is going to surround himself with good people like he is. So
yeah, he definitely, every time I've seen clips of him like on YouTube that leak out and stuff, he's just like a regular guy, and helping people, and just really, I just think he's wonderful.
Well, I heard, and I don't know if this is true, but I heard that on The Matrix, I think he like bought everybody gifts, the whole crew or whatever. I don't know. From what I gather, he's just a really generous.
There's a story going around. It was like, I don't know if it's true either. I've never looked it up, but that supposedly he donated his whole salary to the back end of one of the Matrix.
Maybe
movies.
That's what I heard.
Yeah. To the behind the the people on the behind the scenes, the crew. Yeah, he donated his salary, or at least part of it. That's a story going around, so I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what I heard. One of the reasons why he's so beloved.
Yeah. Well, it seems like he lives a very simple life, and he's probably, which that's the way I would be too. I'm not very superficial in that way. I'm superficial in other ways, but not with material things. I don't really care that much. So
yeah, I know, it's funny because I have a friend who's a real estate agent also, and who knew him, Keanu, and my friend was always trying to, Kimbra, do you need a real estate agent? And I was always like, why don't you hit up Keanu Reeves? He's got a lot more money than I do, And he was like, well, Keanu's lived in the same house since he, made it, and he doesn't, acquire a lot of properties, from what this friend of mine told me. And so I was like, oh, that's so cool. He just, there's one house that whenever he got famous, whatever year that was, whatever his hit movie was, I don't remember. But he said he still lives in that one house, and he doesn't buy a lot of different homes. So I just thought that was interesting, Keanu Reeves is, a cool guy in my book. And from everything I've heard,
I think we'll have to agree on that one. Yeah, he is a special guy, really cool special guy. But anyway, we were talking before about Steven Seagal stories, and I think you were at the birthday party. So I had this birthday party once at the Sunset.
Oh yeah, that's right. And where I met David Sheehan.
Yes, yeah. And it was a quiet night. It was like a Tuesday night. So I'd worked there. So I asked my boss, can I have my birthday party here on a Tuesday night, which is not a very busy night. So it was me and my friends. And somebody got a call and they came to me and said, is it okay if Steven Seagal comes to your party? And I'm like, sure, why not?
Kellie, you're so hip and cool.
Yeah.
Or you were.
No, he's asking if he can come to my party. But that's the first time I met him or anything.
That was a fun night. I remember that night very well. I met a guy that I ended up dating for a while. And,
and we know who that was.
Yeah, no names to be mentioned. But then I also met David Sheehan that night, and I have a picture for that too.
Yeah.
But I remember David Sheehan, he was such a nice guy, and he actually took my phone number, or I don't remember what happened, but he called me and wanted to go out on a date, but I was dating this other person, so I didn't end up going out with him.
And so David Sheehan is a newscaster, right?
Right, sorry.
Newscaster.
He just passed away, I believe, this last year. Yeah, I think he was for Channel 4, but he's been he was around for a long, long time. And real nice guy. And he ended up at your party too. See, everybody was at your party that night.
Was crashing my party. Yeah. Probably because I have so many pretty friends.
Yeah. But it's funny when you talked about Steven Seagal. I have a funny story about that too. One time I went to a tribute that he was being honored for some humanitarian work that he did, and I went to go see him. He actually performed, and one of my friends was the keyboard player for him. And this keyboard player, a friend of mine, he's so amazing. He was musical director for Shaka Khan for a while too, and he was really, really good. And he was playing with Steven Seagal. But yeah, Stephen was very interesting. He was very aggressive about wanting to take me out. And he said to my friend afterwards, he goes, I'd like to get her phone number, and because my friend told me this later. And he said, "Oh, well, she's spoken for," because I had gone to the party with my boyfriend, and my boyfriend knew this guy too, the musical director. But I've heard that Steven Seagal can be very aggressive. Everybody has a Steven Seagal story, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know much about him. I don't know anything other than the acting stuff.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
Yeah.
He's very tall, by the way. He was like,
big guy.
I thought he was at least 6'6". I want to say he was over 6'5".
Yeah, he's a big guy.
Yeah, he's like, whoa, menacing.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, he's another one of the Hollywood, goes about in Hollywood.
Yeah, a gadabout.
Another Hollywood nightclub funny story is I was with my friend Terry, I think, and we were at this bar called, it was either Barfly or Sky Bar. I can't remember what it was called, which one it was, but in Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard. And it was a really crowded night. It was packed. Mm-hmm. So the only seating was, there was this big table we were sitting at, and there was still room for other people to sit there. So the waitress came over and said, "Do you mind if some other people sit with you?" And we're like, "No, of course not. We're not going to take this whole table." So they seated Jean-Claude Van Damme and his party with us.
Oh, I like Jean-Claude.
Jean-Claude Van Damme. Yeah, I mean, we didn't really talk to them that much. We were just polite and nice. Right. But it was funny that they were seated with us.
Yeah, he was. I saw him one time. This is years ago at a New Year's Eve post. We were all at Mel's Drive-In on Sunset. Do you remember Mel's Drive-In?
Yeah.
That was one of the few places that stayed open like all night. And after New Year's one day, he was there. I think it was with his wife or something, but. Yeah, he's a very flirty. He's a little flirty guy.
Yeah. Well, I like I said, he was nice and polite, and he was with his friends, and I was with my friend, and we just all sat at the same table. But it was just kind of funny how, it's just another example of how Hollywood is. It's just you're mixing and mingling with people who are famous, but they're just people, and they want to go out and have a good time too, like everyone else. Another story. So I was friends with David Chow, who was, I don't know his exact title, but he was, I think, one of the producers on that Kung Fu TV series.
Okay.
A very well-known man in Hollywood, and he and I were friends. He took me to the Emmys one year. He didn't have a date, and he's like, "Do you want to go to the Emmys?" And I'm like,
"You're like, sure."
Okay. But the funny thing about that is, the lesson that I learned from that is, I didn't belong there. I wasn't of that caliber of acting or anything, so I never wanted to go to any of those again.
Right.
I said, unless I'm there and I feel like I'm, deserving of being there. So, but anyway, it was fun, and it was.
Hey, you got invited to a party, right?
He needed an escort, so I went with him. But another time, he was always trying to fix me up with people. So he fixed me up with it. He said, "I have a date for you," and I'm like, "Okay." I trusted him. He was a big brother friend to me. So the date was this Middle Eastern, very wealthy movie producer. And so we went to this restaurant. I can't remember the restaurant. It was like a private, restaurant. You had to be on the list to get in. Mm-hmm. And we were with Nikki Hilton of the Hilton family, Ron Popeil, who was of the late night infomercial guy who's
yes, I know
millions and millions. And it was just so funny. And so the guy that I was kind of paired with, I wanted nothing to do with. I had no interest in him. But I sat there and talked with Nikki Hilton and Ron Popeil most of the night, and it was a really funny, entertaining night. But another one of those things where you're sitting there going, "How did I end up here with these people? Like, I don't belong here. I don't belong with these people." But I had a good time.
You're just reminding me of a story, actually. A lot of celebrities, a lot of agents and stuff, and this one agent guy, I believe his name was Marvin. He was with a bigger agency, and I don't remember. It might have been CAA, one of those. He got real tipsy. He was, been drinking all night, and he sort of like, I don't like, as they do. I was such a young, naive little thing, and I'm like, oh, look at all the stars, look at all the stars and look at blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so this guy Marvin, let's say his name's Marvin, he starts like hanging all over me, and he was a lot older than me. All of a sudden I turn and I look and I see Mickey Rourke, who was like, hadn't been acting for a while, but he was still, I remembered him from, The Pope of Greenwich Village and all those other movies that he did. And and he looked real cool in his leather jacket. And he was like, he comes over and he goes, Marvin, I think you've been drinking too much. And he takes him off of me like that. He throws him outside the door, And I was like, oh my, I mean, I'll never forget that, because I was like, gosh, Mickey Rourke rescued me,
Yeah. Oh, that's sweet.
So I'll always think of him kindly. I think he's a great actor, but I just thought that was really cool that he was sort of being protective, because he was kind of like watching us, and he was like, that guy's getting a little too handsy,
Yeah. He used to hang out at one of the bars that I worked at, Vertigo, where the Colachis brothers, and it was the original one, and where Mario that dated Princess Stephanie, she used to always come. Princess Stephanie of Monaco would hang out there. But yeah, he used to hang out there a lot. Yeah, but I never met him.
I think he's a really good actor. I think I respected him for that, but we weren't friends or anything, but I just thought that was so cool that he was sort of like from afar, keeping an eye on me.
Yeah, that's sweet. So, well, he saw that maybe there was a potential problem, and
yeah, that's true.
He's a chivalrous kind of
chivalry,
guy.
New Yorker.
Yeah, that's sweet. That's nice. Yeah, good one. Oh, what's another one? Let me look at my list. I'm thinking of more and more of these encounters, especially like I lived in New York for a year, and I'm starting to think of, people like we used to hang out at this bar called the China Club, and Julian Lennon always hung out there.
Famous.
Yeah, the China Club. And Julian Lennon used to hang out there, and we met him. Nile Rodgers. We used to see him all the time there, and we got to know him. He was very nice and would buy us drinks. He was a music producer.
He's a music producer for Chic. I believe that I saw him open for Duran Duran a few years ago. He's still doing music now.
Yeah, but he was super nice guy. And then another story I have. So my mother came to visit me, and I was taking her to the airport. And we were eating at that place on Laurel Canyon called 4 and 20, that little
I know 4 and 20, yeah. I think it's still there.
It's still there. Is it? So we were eating there. I had no makeup on. I was just taking her to the airport and to drop her off. And I was like, and I don't usually care about celebrities that much, but I saw this gorgeous guy. And I remember I'd seen him in this movie called Tarzan. It was Tarzan Goes to Manhattan or something. Tarzan, and he has this ape. And I was like, this guy is so gorgeous. So he's there. And I'm like, oh my God, there's that guy. He's so cute. But whatever, I'm not thinking he's going to even pay a bit of attention to me. So we leave, and we're driving out the driveway, and he waves our car over, and my mother's on the side where he is, and he starts talking to her, and he says, is that your daughter? And my mother's like, yeah. I was like, oh, she's really pretty. Do you think maybe I could call her? And so I think he gave her his number, gave my mom his number, and I called.
That's nice.
We went on a couple dates, but it was so funny. It was like, oh my gosh. And I had recently seen that movie, and there he is. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's so cute. So I usually am not as starstruck unless they're that gorgeous. He was just like a really cute guy. So so he played Tarzan, and then another guy, I don't know, Tarzan. He was on the TV series Tarzan, Wolf Larson. He was another Tarzan. And I was friends with him because the guy that I was dating was best friends with him. So we were always at holidays at the guy I was dating, his parents' house, Bob. And so we would always be at his parents' house. Just Wolf and I were guests there. So I also knew him, another Tarzan guy. And Wolf is very nice and very handsome too.
Yeah.
So in Hollywood, you never know who you're going to run into.
It's so true. And, like we were out and about a lot. So, you run into these people, Yeah. I was just remembering another funny story was I got invited there was a club on Sunset, a music venue called the House of Blues. It's not there anymore,
Yeah, I love that.
And I got invited to the opening night, and I remember that was the most Aerosmith, again with the Aerosmith, but they played. And It was really
Wow.
cool. Yeah, it was a really fun party. And so I'm like standing there because I thought this was really good because, the House of Blues was a fun place to hang out. But at a night like that, there was hardly anybody at the front watching. It was like there was maybe 10 of us just sort of like, and everybody else was up there. And so I remember I was like rocking out to the music, and all of a sudden I turned to my right and I see Brad Pitt just hanging out. And I'm like, I'm watching Aerosmith with Brad Pitt.
That would be surreal.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool. And
Yeah.
he seemed, I've heard so many nice things about another one, like Keanu, that he's just like the nicest guy, and he's, real down to earth, he seems like,
Yeah.
If it wasn't so noisy, I might have said something to him, but we were like, engrossed in the music.
Yeah, and so good looking. The first, his introduction to the industry, to film, was Thelma and Louise, and I remember
Right.
I'd gone and seen that movie, and it was just obvious his charisma came, through
that and his chest. No, I'm kidding.
Well, and his gorgeous face.
Yes, and his face. This is true.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a sexist.
Yeah, gorgeous. But anyway, yeah, and then so the guy that I used to go to his parents' house for holidays, Bob, he also was friends with the Motley Crue guys. So he took me one time, they were filming a video, and he took me to the set where they were filming the video, and we hung out with Heather Locklear and Tommy Lee that day because, they were close friends and everything. So that was kind of another neat thing, another behind the scenes thing.
Fun.
And I think, I know you and I have gone backstage to a lot of concerts, and at this point you get so spoiled. Like, you're seeing these big rock stars, these big bands, and little intimate settings and little nightclubs, that you get spoiled and you don't even want to go to big concerts anymore. Like, I'm to the point, if I don't have backstage passes, I'm not fighting a big crowd and seeing them on a little screen. What's the sense? What's the point? But
yeah, I know, it's true. Like, I was telling you that Kiss story before, and one time, same boyfriend, Mark, we got invited to see them at Dodger Stadium. This was a fun night, actually. And Tommy, who is the guitar player, but it's one of Mark's best friends, was at the time was their manager. So he went all out for us. He had backstage passes, front row seats at the Dodger Stadium. But it was a Halloween night, and I dressed up like Betty Page, and Mark was dressed up like a gangster. So that song, I Want to Rock and Roll All Night, Party Every Day, was like the finale. And so the camera guy's, like doing this thing, and he goes, and all of a sudden I look up and it's me, rocking out like for the whole song, and I was like, oh my God, how embarrassing. It's like when the camera's right on you like that, So it was
Dodger Stadium?
Yeah, it was.
Oh my gosh, how fun.
Yeah, it was a night to remember, because seeing Kiss on Halloween is a fun experience, but we were like right up front, and then also backstage there was a party going on back there too, but yeah, Tommy really came through for Mark that night, because that's a fun thing to do on Halloween. But then when we were walking to the car, everybody was like, that's the girl from the screen.
Oh, yeah, that would be fun. Kind of funny looking up and going, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was just weird because you look so close and you're like, it's not a flattering look to see your face all over the screen like that.
Well, it depends on what you're doing. But yeah.
Anyway, that was just a fun night too,
Yeah, and Tommy, that's the Tommy I know.
Tommy
right?
Thayer.
The Tommy, yeah,
Mhm.
We had some fun times with Tommy and Mark.
Yeah, we had some. Yeah, and he's the guitar player, I guess, for Kiss. So so that's fun,
Yeah. Tommy's
He's a good guy. Yeah, he is.
Guy. Where did we go? We went to like the Improv. I don't know. Anyway,
Did we
used
go?
to hang
Yeah,
out
I guess
together.
we did.
All
Oh,
together.
you guys did. Not. I didn't go with you guys. I didn't go with you.
You and Mark did too.
Oh, did we?
I
Okay.
thought. No, I could be wrong. Yeah, I thought you guys went with us too. We used to go to parties, and I thought anyway.
It's all a big blur. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, it was it was a long while ago, but yeah, Tommy's like the nicest of the nicest people. He's
Yeah,
a really
especially for excuse me, a rock musician. He's so level-headed and just seems like he's got a real good head on his shoulders. I think it's hard for him to straddle those two worlds, like being a musician, but he's also got a good business head, like Mark.
Yeah.
And Gene and Paul, I think, are like that too.
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I think if they don't get all caught up in the hype and the drugs and the women and you know, my experiences in that scene, I just couldn't picture myself ending up with one of those guys because it just didn't seem like the lifestyle that I wanted,
Mm.
you know. Um
Well, a lot of the negative thing for me is a lot of drugs, you know, and I never really took drugs. So
mhm,
it would be hard. I'm so into like
yeah,
trying to lead a healthy lifestyle that it would be
yeah,
hard for me to be in that world, you know? But I
well,
always
and
think I'd go ahead.
yeah. Well, I was always like, but like, okay, so you're in this band, but what's your job? Because where I come from in Ohio, like being an actor or being a musician in a band is not a job. It's fun or whatever. And so I would always be like, but what's your job? Like, what else are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And they'd be like, well, I make a lot of money. I'm
That's
in a
funny.
band and I work. That's my job. And I just could not a lot of
You're
times
like,
wrap my head
that's for
around that.
fun. That's for
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
just be like, I don't know. You need to go to work every day.
Well,
So,
believe it or not, being a musician and creating music is hard, you
yeah.
know?
Well, and I learned, I mean, it is work and it is a job and it's a creative job, but you know, coming from Ohio, it just, it took me a while to wrap my head around it. Even, you know, for myself is doing acting and stuff because
That's true.
I was never a super successful actor, so I always had a job, you know. So
Right, right,
in
right,
my
right.
mind, it was always like, well, you have to have a job too, right? Something to fall back on in case that big, you know, Guns N' Roses doesn't work out.
Right, right. You know, and the music business is a tough game anyway. Even you know, if you get to the pinnacle of it, there's only a handful of musicians that
Yeah,
have linked, like, you know, like we talked about these rock stars, they managed to be successful during a time when there was a lot of money to be made, and now it's a lot harder, you know. So
yeah,
you just have
yeah,
to do it for the love, and hopefully you'll make some money,
yeah, yeah. That's true. That's true.
you know.
Yeah. So anyway, I have a few more people to talk about that were like not really celebrity encounters. They were where I waited on them or something in the clubs in LA. So one is I was hired as a bartender to work for Ashley Simpson's birthday party. So Jessica
Mm-hmm.
Simpson and Ashley Simpson. So I was at their parents' house, and I remember that night because they were all such nice people. And his mother or their mother, when I was leaving, she hugged me. And I remember
Aw.
when I first got there, like she took me into her kitchen. She goes, okay, here's the kitchen. Make yourself at home. Let me know if you need anything. And they treated me more like a guest, even though I
Mm-hmm.
was hired like to be their bartender.
Uh-huh.
So I really appreciated that. I thought they were really good, nice people. And then Ashley and Jessica were so polite. I mean, they were just polite young ladies. So they really left a big impression on me. I was really impressed with that. And that reminds me of a time I was hired to be a bartender at this house in Malibu for July 4th.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this girl was telling me I needed to go. I was told I was going to be the bartender. So
I am the
I
bartender.
am the bartender. So I had this table with beer. Really, all I had was beer. All I had to do was open beer and get handed to
She's
people.
the beer girl.
So this girl was like, you need to go down on the beach and ask people if they want something to drink. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm not going to go wait on people. And then my friend that hired me showed up and I'm like, Eric, they're treating me like I'm the hired help. And which is kind of funny in itself because his answer was like, yeah, Kelly, you are. And I was like, well, I'm not going and waiting on people down on the beach. I'm not doing that. So anyway, it was just funny. And by the end of the party, I have these two guys opening all the beers for me and restocking the ice, and they were guests at the party. So pretty much I really was just more having fun than doing anything, but it was kind of a funny
You managed to
incident.
get invited to a place to party, but sort of be the bartender.
Well, I was supposed to be the bartender and I ended up being more of a guest than a bartender, but it
That's
was
funny.
kind of comical. Um, but
That is
anyway,
funny.
some of my other favorite famous people that I waited on well, Ashton Kutcher.
Oh yeah,
So yeah. I was
cutie,
working at
hottie.
this club where everybody came and I was like, wonder if Ashton Kutcher will ever show up here. You know, another cute guy. I'm like, I see all these gorgeous actors. Why not Ashton Kutcher? And literally, he, you know, a week later, he's there. And he was with Brittany Murphy. And then the second time that he came, he was, he used to hang out, but the second time that I waited on him, he came up to the bar and he was, I cut him off. I'm like, you can't have any more because you've had too much. You're showing signs of obvious intoxication. So I was being a professional. And then Nikki Hilton came up to the bar and he was trying to buy her a drink then. So he was like, well, I don't know if he was going to buy it for her and get it from her later, but, anyway, I wouldn't serve either one of them. So, but he was, a sweet guy, a nice guy. But another one of my favorites was, what's his name? Mark Wahlberg.
Mark you told me about Wahlberg. That.
Well, I waited on him at several places. One was one bar in Hollywood. It was on Santa Monica Boulevard. And then another one was the celebrity nightclub where all the celebrities came. And he was so real and so down to earth. He just hung out. He was so nice. He didn't act, no airs about him. And I remember one night, because I waited on him, he used to come to the bar all the time and I'd hang out. And I waited on him one night. It was so busy. There was just like a sea of people in front of me. And it was like Mark McGrath and Drew Barrymore and tons of people and celebrities just like staring at me wanting drinks, but there's, they're all waiting to get a drink. And I'm going as fast as I can. And I see Mark Wahlberg off to my left with money in his hand, like waving money, which is how you get a bartender's attention, right? I got my money ready.
Tip number 2.
Well, it's not about the tip. It's about having your money ready. So I don't have to wait for you to go through all your pockets and stuff.
I mean, tip number 2.
Tip for getting waited on. Yeah. Tip for getting waited on. So, because it's not like you're just thinking you're going to get all that money. But anyway, I couldn't wait on him because he was too far away. And I was just waiting on the people right in front of me because I knew it was faster. So he made his way down to get to me. And, a lot of celebrities he knew I saw him, but I didn't go and wait on him. And a lot of celebrities might have taken attitude with that. Instead, he just said, damn, you're good. And I thought that was so nice of him to be patient and polite and, give me a compliment because he saw how hard I was working. So he was just, the nicest. I always was really impressed with him. He's one of the ones I was always impressed with. Drew Barrymore, one night she was smoking and you're not allowed to smoke in the club. So I made her put her cigarette out. No problem. Okay. Just as sweet as pie. Paid for the drink. She bought a round of drinks for everyone, gave me a nice tip and just, no attitude, no, just a very nice, sweet demeanor and the way that she acted. Let me look up my notes. Oh, Vince Vaughn, another one.
I have a Vince Vaughn story too.
Okay, we keep remembering all these stories. We keep thinking we don't have as many stories.
Right.
So he was I'll say a bit tipsy, but not so tipsy that I couldn't serve him. So somebody bought him a drink. And he leaned over the bar. He's very tall, very big. And I described him to my sister as kind of dangerous. Like there's just something about him that like, he's a bad boy.
A little playful too. He reminds me of a little.
It's an edgy. Well, in this moment, the way I met him, he's edgy and just dangerous, and you just like sexy. Like sexy.
I agree with that.
So anyway, he digs into his pocket and pulls out a rumpled bill and throws, doesn't throw it, but like lays it on the bar because he wanted to tip me, which I thought was so nice of him because he didn't buy the drink or anything. And he, it was just sweet of him to think of that in his state. Where he was, because there's so many other things going on and people are talking to him and, trying to get his autograph, but that he thought enough to, give me a tip. I thought was really sweet. What's your story?
My story, it's not that big of a deal, but I was at the Sundance Film Festival one year, and he ended up being like staying 2 rooms next to my room, so I was with Mark. We were there because we used to go to Sundance sometimes because he'd get a lot of songs and movies and television, movies at Sundance. Anyway, so I'm waiting to go to the party. There was all these parties, and so we ended up walking together to the party, and he was just like the nicest guy, and then I saw him again later, and I was like, I kept running into Vince Vaughn, but probably because he was staying, in my same little hotel. Mm-hmm. But he was a nice guy. But I know what you mean. He's like very like, he was always a little. Well,
he's so tall and not handsome in the traditional way, not like the Mark McGrath who's just pretty. Right. But he's sexy. He has appeal. He's just has this appeal that he's,
Yeah, and he's funny dangerous. And he's talented,
Yeah.
And he's tall, like you said.
Yeah. He was. I don't think he came to my bar very often, but a couple times I saw him, and he was just his height, I think, is, and the way he carries himself. And anyway,
Yeah. Well, you like
um,
tall guys anyway.
yeah, I usually do. Um, Another one I just thought of was David Schwimmer from Friends.
Right.
So I guess I do get starstruck with some people because I loved Friends. I used to love Friends, and even though when I met Matthew LeBlanc, I didn't know he was on that show, and I hadn't watched that show enough to, become attached. But David Schwimmer, I just thought was so cute and so funny, so funny. So I was kind of excited when I waited on him. He used to come to my bar. Another one that he didn't want to be noticed. He did not want to be acknowledged. You could tell. It's like, please don't say anything about what I do.
Right.
He was very nice. He always would give me his credit card. At the time he'd come with this beautiful girl, and I think that's who he ended up marrying. But anyway, he was always just very nice and polite, but you could tell he'd be like, please don't notice me. Please don't say anything to me. Please don't mention Friends. But, and I never did. So, but anyway, I was excited to wait on him. And then another one, Gabrielle Union. So I worked at this bar in the Valley. It was kind of a hot place in the Valley, and Gabrielle Union came. And I didn't know who she was, because a lot of times there were people I waited on that I didn't know who they were. But I just remember thinking, I want to touch this girl's skin. Her skin was so beautiful. She should do makeup commercials. I don't know if she does, but like, I just remember thinking, oh my God, her skin glows. She's beautiful. She was beautiful. But
like that girl that did the Biden, the poet laureate girl, the African-American girl. Did you watch the Lady Gaga?
Oh, her. Yeah. No, well,
her skin was glowing.
I never thought about her. It's just in person, like Gabrielle was just so breathtakingly beautiful. And that's what I remembered. And then I didn't know who she was. And then when she walked away, somebody said, oh, that's Gabrielle Union. And I was like, oh, she's so pretty. I might have even told her that, because I always tell people they're pretty, which reminds me of another one, Minnie Driver. So I waited on her, and I didn't know who she was. And she said she liked my trousers, and I thought that was funny. She had an accent, and I was like, oh, my trousers, thank you. And then she introduced herself. She's like, I'm Minnie, and what's your name? And I said, I'm Kellie. And then, a little bit later, I'm like, I think that's Minnie Driver, because sometimes it doesn't register. You don't realize, oh yeah, this is that person from the movies or whatever.
She's so funny. I love her. I was watching
sweet.
I was watching reruns of Will and Grace, and she was on it for quite a bit. The first incarnation, and maybe the second one too. But anyway, she's really talented and super funny. Mm-hmm. I just love her,
Yeah, and she's another one. I think she's prettier in person. The camera doesn't do her justice, because she was beautiful. I mean, she was really pretty. And not that she's not beautiful in her movies. She tends to be willing to not be the pretty girl in the movies.
That's true. She also wants to be comedic too a lot of times.
Yeah. But she was absolutely beautiful, and I was very impressed with how sweet and nice she was. And
I remember when I was at the House of Blues, the party, I think it was that first night I told you about, with the opening for the House of Blues. I believe it was the opening night. But anyway, afterwards we were all sitting down up at the tables up above after we watched the group, and we were ordering drinks and food. And I looked over, and as a kid, I used to idolize Renee Russo. I just thought she was the prettiest, because she was different. She was a model, but she was different than the other models.
Kind of reddish hair. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she was also kind of like, she didn't seem very pretentious. She just seemed kind of down to earth. So, sorry, my thing popped up. Anyway, so I looked over and I said, oh my gosh, that's Renee Russo, and so I went over, I never do this, but I went over to her and I said, you were, when I was growing up, you were my idol. And I thought she probably made her feel old, but she was so sweet. She was like, oh, thank you so much. She was so sweet, Well,
she became an actor too, right?
Yeah, I think
and she was a good actor.
Yeah, I remember she'd done some acting. And so, but I recognized her because it was really dark, and I was, she had been around for a long time, but, she was just one of the nicer models.
Okay, that reminds me of the night we were at Jones. Isn't it on Santa Monica Boulevard? We were at Jones, because when you said it's dark, it was dark.
Yeah.
And we saw, what's his name? Josh Hartnett.
Oh, yeah, Josh Hartnett. Yeah.
Sure. It just reminded me of that night, because it was really dark and there was not very many people there, but we were like, oh, that's Josh Hartnett.
Yeah, Josh Hartnett, cutie, really good looking guy.
Yeah. Another hottie.
Yeah, he was. And gosh, there's just so many. But like we were saying before, it's just like wherever you go, especially when you go to these celebrity type things. I went to the Elton John Oscar party. I went a few times because a friend of mine was working for Elton John, and I went a few times. And one night I was watching, I was sitting on the couch waiting for Elton John to play, and I turned and I looked, and I was like, oh my God, it was like Nancy Wilson from Heart. The one that was married to Aaron Spelling, his wife, was sitting next to me, and Cameron Crowe was there because he was married to Nancy Wilson from Heart. And I was just sitting up with all of them watching Elton John. I'm like, this is so cool. You know?
Yeah, kind of surreal.
Yeah, because Elton John, you know, to see Elton John perform it, first of all, is like a great thing, right? And I'm in like, you know, the cushiony circumstances, you know.
Yeah.
So that
I wish I would have kept more of a diary. I wish I would have, even with, you know, the nights, the good nights that I had that celebrities weren't involved, because in Hollywood, it's just, you know, it's very conducive to, you know, they know how to throw a party.
Yes, this is true. This is true.
I've had so many fun times at parties and nightclubs. I remember another night. So we were at this nightclub, and we get invited to a party. You know, somebody we knew, they're like, come to this party. So we go to this party. I was with my friend Terry, and we ended up meeting Eddie Murphy, and he liked her. He liked Terry. He was very
like blondes.
So he invited us into this room where he was playing on the keyboards. He was trying to impress her. And it was just the three of us. Like, here's Eddie Murphy playing keyboards and trying to impress my friend. You know, so just so many fun, crazy nights that were, you know, just part out in Hollywood, having a good
Another
time.
night in Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, I have a whole list. I'm looking at this list from my, here's one. So for those that knew Warrant, Janie Lane, the singer of Warrant, I feel bad because the last time I talked to him, I scolded him. And then of course he ended up dying after that. But yeah, he had called me. I always told him, don't call me in the morning, because I was bartending. I would sleep, you know, late, because I'd work late. And he called me at like 9 a.m. one morning, and I was like, don't call me early in the morning. So my last conversation with him. So I feel kind of bad about that.
Right.
But, you know, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. So you always just try to be as kind as we can to people.
Well, I was just going to say, but for people that do want to come out to Hollywood, hoping to meet celebrities, it's funny though, if you actually come out here, like to go out to Hollywood, and you go on Hollywood Boulevard, usually your first time, you're kind of like, oh, you know, because on Hollywood Boulevard's kind of like not very nice, you know?
Yeah, Hollywood Boulevard's kind of seedy, and there aren't, but the along Sunset Boulevard and, well, the nicer places are Sunset between, what is it, La Cienega and La Brea?
Well, anything west of, you know, west of La Brea starts getting pretty nice. And then you go into Beverly Hills once you get past Doheny, right?
Yeah.
So it's nice there.
And then between Doheny and La Cienega is all the rock clubs. Those are
right. But it's, you know, it's a little nicer part of town than like Hollywood Boulevard between Hollywood and Vine, let's say.
Well, because people go to Hollywood Boulevard and they think this is Hollywood, and it's all this. That's the tourist part. That's not really any fun.
Yeah.
The real fun is going to the bars and the restaurants, and you know, the actually immersing yourself into the.
But if you do live in LA, then you will start, you know, meeting people all the time at the grocery store.
There's Venice Beach. Venice Beach is fun.
Venice Beach.
Down in Santa Monica. Yeah, Santa Monica.
Mulholland Drive is a beautiful drive. A lot of celebrities live on Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, they live up there. The view's gorgeous. If you just drive up there and take pictures and look out at night, you know, look out. It's really beautiful. I have two Malibu stories. One is my friend Bo. His family owns a house at Broad Beach, which is private.
Right.
And so the first time I was invited, we used to go to parties there all the time. They would be like all weekend long, because his family had a house just for parties, I guess, because that's not where they lived. But we'd go and have parties. Did you ever go with me to any of those parties at the beach?
Mm-mm.
We'd be there all weekend. You wouldn't leave. You'd just bring clothes for the whole weekend, and you'd stay on all weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And my first time there, you know, they gave me directions, and I parked and everything. You had to walk through, you know, you had to drive through this gated area. And I couldn't find that exact house because they don't have numbers on them. So I went knocking on the door on this house, and I'm like, looking for my friend. And Emilio Estevez answers the door. And he's
Oh,
like,
how
yeah,
funny.
no, yeah, they're three houses down. So anyway, so that was kind of interesting and funny. And then another time I was shopping in Malibu in this little shopping center in a store, and I was looking at clothes on a rack, and there was a big picture window there, and I felt somebody staring at me, and I look out, and it's Mel Gibson.
Oh,
So he's at a
yeah.
restaurant like beside it. And so he had his back to everyone in the restaurant. So all he could look at was this window. So he was like facing that way. So anyway, that was kind of like surreal to look up and see there's Mel Gibson. So
Wow, yeah.
my Malibu.
That's when he used to hang out, when he was hanging out and about a lot, I'm sure. And then he had some troubles. So,
Yeah.
but
So
anyways,
anyway,
but that's just a sample, a small sample of the people that we've met and encountered, and that's not even relationships. That's just friends and weird things.
People that that we've worked with. I've worked with so many, like at William Morris, I have tons of stories. Buzz Aldrin, I had to call him one day for pictures, the astronaut guy, and
Right,
just so many stories like that. So anyway, we just thought if people are interested in sharing, but the message that I'd like to share is, they're just people, and you have to respect their privacy and their family life, and not be invasive if you see someone. It is fun to get excited, and I'm sure they appreciate the fandom. But just remember that if they're out and about and you're not introduced to them, it's not appropriate to approach them.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kelly, because I remember when I used to do those USO tours, and we would be flying all day, and we would get out, and they would say, "Do you want to go eat?" And we go, "Yes." And then all the poor, servicemen, the soldiers, they were so, lonely. They hadn't seen anybody for a long time. So they would come and bombard us and want our autographs and everything.
Yeah.
But I was so hungry, and I remember thinking, I'm so hungry, I just want to eat, but we had to be nice to them, but it's kind of reminds me of what you're saying. It's like sometimes people, they're just living their lives, and they're out with their kids or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you got to be cognizant of that, right?
Yes. Yeah, because I don't think they owe us anything. They do their work, and that's what they get paid for. And I don't think they really owe us anything. So
be respectful. Always be respectful.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time.
Hey, bye.
Bye.
Bye.